We're giving you the hard facts about soft skills. This is the IssuesWatch podcast. Hi, I'm Don Meyer, Chief Growth Officer at the New Jersey Society of CPAs, and welcome to the IssuesWatch podcast. In a world of growing expectations, complex teams, and constant change, it's the human side that often makes the biggest difference. Whether you call that human side soft skills, people skills, relational abilities, or core professional competencies, it's communication, emotional intelligence, and adaptability that often make the biggest difference. Joining me today to discuss the role of soft skills in accounting is Jerry Maginnis. He's a CPA, an executive in residence at Rowan University, and a former KPMG Philadelphia office managing partner. He is also the author of a book entitled Advice for a Successful Career in the Accounting Profession: How to Make Your Assets Greatly Exceed Your Liabilities. Welcome back, Jerry.
Hey, Don, good to be with you as always.
All right, so let's start with the basics. In your experience as a managing partner, how did soft skills show up as a differentiator between average and outstanding professionals?
Yeah, it's a great topic, Don. And, as I think about the key success factors in public accounting, whether you're an auditor, a tax professional, an advisor to your clients, it really starts with the technical skills and mastering them, whatever they are, for your discipline. But it's so important to be able to effectively communicate and interact with your clients on a day-to-day basis. As your career progresses, mentoring and coaching and developing your younger colleagues is incredibly important. And then, of course, at some point, you're expected to hopefully help your firm develop some business, and those business development skills are important. So I think about those, really core competencies that are essential to success. Pretty much all of them involve strong people skills, right? Strong soft skills, the ability to deal with people. Certainly the client service aspect, that's critically important. You're going to deal with some difficult and challenging personalities from time to time. As you think about business development, again, getting to know people, building relationships, soft skills, very important. And coaching and mentoring people, the same. So I think soft skills sort of pervade everything that is important to a career in the accounting profession.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, accounting, even though maybe people outside the profession think of it as a technical or numbers-based profession, it really is a relationship or people-based profession, isn't it?
Absolutely. So much so that in my book, I have a whole chapter devoted to the importance of working with other professionals, other people, your clients, your colleagues. And that is just so critically important to your success, as is your ability to develop and maintain relationships. So soft skills, really, really important, and sadly, sometimes lacking, particularly in some of our younger professionals these days.
Right, agreed. Now, you've been talking about soft skills for a very long time. In fact, last year, you and I ran into each other at the NABA convention. You were doing a presentation for students there, and you covered soft skills and the importance of communication and so forth. But do you think historically the profession has undervalued soft skills, and do you think that's changing?
Again, really, really important question and topic. I would say that historically, and my career goes back decades, so I have kind of a long perspective on this, but historically and until fairly recently, the number one thing that was important to success in this profession and the views of partners, managers, senior people at firms was your technical skills. And in fairness, they are and remain incredibly important. They are the currency that will finance your career, the ability to stay current and adapt to a rapidly changing, regulatory, technology-driven landscape that impacts what we do day to day is sort of job one. So I would never underestimate the importance of technical skills, but that's not all that matters, right? I've known a lot of great, talented, smart, hardworking people in my career that were fantastic technicians, but some of these other areas we touched on, their ability to communicate effectively with client and convey that message, especially if maybe it's bad news or a tough message, if they're not capable at that or good at that, that can really undermine your career progress. Same thing again with developing and coaching your people. So as with a lot of professions, you can't just be one dimensional. You have to be a great technician, but you have to be able to communicate effectively, interact with your colleagues, your clients, the marketplace effectively. And again, soft skills are incredibly important to all those dimensions of your success.
Right. And not just in the short term, like you said, for dealing with clients and customers, or certainly your coworkers, but longer term, soft skills are essential for leadership. If you want to become a partner or CFO, they're essential to advancing in the workplace as well.
Totally agree. Learned that lesson myself during my career. And I think as your career advances, one of the soft skills that is particularly important is being a good listener. Don, we live in a very busy, distracted world. Everyone is multitasking on a regular basis, social media, distracted by their phones, etc. And I found that people are not great listeners. Sometimes you need to reiterate something 3, 4 times before that message starts to sink in. A good way to distinguish yourself and be a great communicator is to be a really good listener. And funny thing, people appreciate when you listen to them.
Mhm.
Whether it's a simple nod or I understand or some sort of acknowledgement that you're getting their message, they really appreciate that because a lot of people candidly are not listening to them.
Yeah, and that you led into my next question, which is what soft skills do you think are most critical for young CPAs who aspire to leadership roles, whether it's in firms, corporate accounting, or public service? I think listening is a great one. The other one, and I think it's tied to listening, is I think because so much of our communication is electronic now, I find that a lot of young people find it very challenging to ask questions. Not only do they not ask questions, when they ask questions, they're not really sure how to do it or what to ask. And I think that's such an important part of a back and forth with someone.
Yeah, you're spot on that, and particularly for like people that are just entering the profession, students, interns, early career professionals. In my experience, they're often reluctant to ask a question because they may feel like they're displaying a weakness or a vulnerability, or that someone is presuming they should know what they're asking the question about. And I tell young professionals all the time, like, the old adage, there's no such thing as a stupid question other than the one that doesn't get asked is so true. I mean, nobody expects you to know everything when you're right out of school or early in your career. And frankly, the world is changing at such a rapid pace that it's hard for seasoned professionals and partners to know everything, right? So I think the mark of a really good professional, whatever their level, is demonstrating that intellectual curiosity and the ability to ask the question in the right way is also a really important soft skill. Like, hey, Don, I know you and I have talked about this previously, but can you give me a refresher on this, right? Which kind of takes away the, well, I told you this before type reaction, right?
Right.
So there's an art form to that I think young professionals would do well to study and learn. Emotional intelligence, right?
Yes.
Which I sometimes define as the ability to read the room. If you're sitting in a meeting with 6 or 8 people, there's an art form to how you communicate, interact. Certainly, you want to be professional. Certainly, you want to be courteous. You should not be bashful or hesitant to raise, your perspective, your point of view, ask a question. But there's a right and a wrong way to do that, right? If I tell you, Don, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, I totally disagree with that, chances are you're not going to react well to my input, right? But if I say, Don, you make some great points. Can I share another perspective? That's maybe a better way to communicate your input.
All right. No, I think that's a great point. Emotional intelligence, both for the newly hired as well as for leaders, is so critically important. Again, not just internally, but of course also dealing with customers and clients. So how can accounting firms and companies better identify, nurture, and reward those soft skills we've been talking about among their teams, especially during performance reviews or promotions? Can you put a metric on soft skills?
Yeah, it's such an important topic, and I think particularly in many ways, I think we're still emerging from the pandemic, right?
Right.
In some ways, it forever changed the way we work and interact. We will always be doing more remote work, but I do tell young professionals in person is incredibly important. You need to show up at least 3 days a week, in my opinion, and work in person with your colleagues or your clients. But I think firms have really been struggling with this since the pandemic. And in fairness to the young professionals and students, I mean, they lived in front of a computer screen for 2 or 3 years, and it was at a critically important time in their development where normally they'd be out and learning some of those interaction skills. So we all have work to do in this area to help our younger colleagues be successful. I think number one thing firms can do, Don, is just address it, right? Talk about it. Just like you're telling them their technical skills are important or their client service skills are important, take some time in your training sessions, in your orientations, in your one-on-one meetings to talk about soft skills and how important they are, and how every young professional ideally should have a plan, a strategy on how they're going to develop theirs. I mean, it doesn't just happen, like a lot of things in life, it doesn't just happen without kind of a plan, a strategy, a way to get some reps and get some training. So talk about it with your younger professionals. And then I don't know if it's hard, of course, to come up with a formal metric, but certainly during a performance review session, there should be conversation. I should say to you, Don, how do you think you're doing in the soft skills area? Have you had an opportunity to develop those skills? Have you been to any training that emphasizes those skills? Do you have a mentor who's coaching you on those skills? And maybe even a section on the performance evaluation report or form or document, whatever it is, that addresses soft skills development and rates and evaluates that individual on how they're doing, provides some feedback, some coaching on how they can get better. Making it visible is important because for too long, it probably hasn't been. It's sort of been something under the surface that everybody knew was important, but maybe wasn't formally addressed by firms and companies and organizations.
Yeah, I think a plan is critically important because I've heard for 20 years from folks at firms, all levels of firms, the importance of soft skills, whether it's communications, presentation skills, emotional intelligence. And as an organization, we set up all manner of soft skills courses, expecting that there's going to be dozens of young people that will sign up to improve their soft skills, and then, nobody signs up. So I think that support, that encouragement from firms to say, hey, listen, we want you to get better at this. We understand it may be uncomfortable, but it could be really important for your career development. I think that's crucially important because, I mean, let's face it, no one wants to admit they're bad at something like soft skills, right? And if you sign up for a course, it's almost an admission that you're not very good at it.
Yeah, and so a good way to tackle that might be for the firms to run a course or for the firms to sponsor their younger professionals to attend a program run by the NJCPA. That's like mandatory. Like, we're not picking on you, Jerry or Don, because we think you're not good at this, but we think this is important for everybody to get exposed to this, learn, master, develop these skills. And there's no question. I mean, talk to any firm leader, any managing partner, they'll tell you how critically important this is. I joke with people, like, in my book, there is absolutely nothing about debits or credits or technical accounting topics. It's all about the soft skills, right? Because there was a need there. There was a void, I believe, in a lot of the training and development that our young folks get.
Yeah. And we used to, as an organization, we used to go into a lot of firms and do presentations on communication skills and social media and things like that. But of course, the pandemic kind of threw all of that off kilter. So we're actually looking to go back to that old school approach, going into firms, speaking to the entire firm if necessary on these skills. And we've always gotten really positive feedback. So that's a great point. So let me put you on the spot for a moment. Can you share an example from your career where soft skills played a crucial role in resolving a major challenge or advancing a relationship?
Yeah. Geez, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a moment. So yeah, I can recall a situation, Don. It was relatively early in my career. I was a manager on an audit engagement. It was a fairly large client for our firm. We probably had a team of 6 or 7 people going to the client every day. And I was new to the account. So I remember my first day I went out there and 2 or 3 of the team members were complaining about this one client individual that they had to deal with on a regular basis, that he was rude, he was very difficult to deal with, he tended to criticize everything we did, gave a lot of short one-word answers, just really hard to kind of interact with. And I thought to myself, well, maybe they're overreacting, right? So I went to meet this individual, and sure enough, they had it spot on. He was a very difficult personality. So I'm back to the audit room, and I was reflecting, and I'm thinking, gosh, this is a difficult situation because this is a big important client. Obviously, I don't want my staff to be miserable. They have an important job to do. The client's paying us a lot of money. We want to do a good job for them. Like, we need to figure this out, right? So I called this guy the next day and I said, hey, can we go grab a cup of coffee, like off-site, just get to know each other a little bit, catch up. So fortunately, he agreed, and we had that cup of coffee. And unfortunately, it was pretty much more of the same. For 50 minutes out of the hour, I got berated and I got told about all the things that we didn't understand, weren't doing well. Why is this necessary? Why do you ask us for this report? But I kind of hung in there and thanked him for his time. And then the next week, I asked him to go again. And that second week, I only got 30 minutes of being berated. And by that point, I understood enough of where he was coming from to realize there was an opportunity to maybe educate a little bit. Like, he really didn't understand what auditors did or what an audit was all about. So I started just explaining, like, not in an apologetic way, but like, here's why we asked you for this. Here's why this is necessary. Did you know that we have these professional standards we need to comply with, and they require certain things? And so I can't say I can declare total victory, but slowly but surely we were able to build a relationship, and we continued to have weekly coffees. And shockingly, about a month in, I realized that actually a number of the things he was sharing were very constructive, relevant, appropriate suggestions to us on how we could do our jobs better, and like good feedback, right? So again, that art of listening. But sometimes taking the time to connect with people. I would ask him about his family, and we really got to be much closer. In fact, a couple years later, I made partner, and one of the first congratulatory letters I got was from this person. So I guess the moral of the story is, you're going to encounter some difficult, challenging personalities, and shouting them down and getting mad or angry or fighting back is probably not the right answer in many instances, but finding a way where you can get that common ground, you can educate, you can build a relationship, can be really important to your long-term success.
That was a great story. I mean, all sorts of great lessons in there about conflict resolution, listening, empathy. Because you need to understand when you have a conflict with somebody, you need to sort of put yourself in their shoes and say, okay, where are they coming from? Is this really, the old saying is that when somebody is frustrated or mad, or they're yelling at you about something, it's rarely about the thing they're yelling at you. There's usually something else behind it. So, I mean, I think that's a great story about a number of different soft skills that you're able to put to good use. And that's great that, he was one of the first people to congratulate and became partner. That's a terrific story. So we appreciate it, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you, Don. You're bringing back some memories here.
That's good. That's what we try and do here. Jerry, thanks again for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, and thanks for all the great work the NJCPA does for its memberships and the broader profession. And congrats on your progress on the CPA role in New Jersey. That's awesome.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. Thanks for listening or watching. Please visit the show notes for a link to Jerry's book, as well as career development articles, resources, and events.